I want to play with a different team. So let's play with a different team. A battery, I literally just charged. Must be because of Steam, hopefully.
今日も冒険頑張るのだ。
So here we have Vale, Iash, Liana, Almond, Ia. Iask and Alma will be covering the bulk of damage dealing, since the two of them have a good amount of both physical and elemental damage available. Vale can support for damaging, but for the most part she'll be a buffer/healer. And Liana and Ia will be debuffers. In other words, everyone else is a support.
気をつけていくんだぞ。
いらっしゃい。どうぞ。誰を呼びますか?
Unlike this team, which is basically composed entirely of damage dealers, with the only exception being Mara, I suppose.
いってらっしゃい。
Right, I've had them grinded up, and by that I mean I used the XP DLC. I did forget though, but I was supposed to spend their skill points. I wasn't able to spend the skill points. Do 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 do.
Upgrade! That's how we make the dough. Mario 64 DS is one of the more controversial Mario titles. While developing the DS, Nintendo needed to prove it could do big 3D games, so they crammed Mario 64 onto the handheld. Obviously, they had to make some concessions to get it working. Namely, controls. Character input is limited to the D-pad, and they added a run button to help make precise movements easier. In general, they're usable, and can even feel good while you're running around Peach's courtyard. But when it's time to do some coherent platforming, they can get frustrating. But today I wanted to put those critiques to the side, and strictly examine the game design. Did 64DS actually improve over the original? Or did its changes end up falling flat? Originally, this video was going to be a very detailed list of all the level design changes, but after writing a full script of that, most of it doesn't matter. For example, in DS you're required to catch this rabbit to get inside the castle, so it's probably added to let the player get even more used to the controls, but arguably takes away from the atmosphere outside the castle. The point is, you could analyze which version of Bob on Battlefield is better, but the differences are so minor, it doesn't really matter. A lot of the changes aren't better or worse, just different. If you do want a video going super in-depth on each level, comment that down below, and I'll consider making it. And maybe subscribe while you're at it, it'll help me survive. this video is going to go over is a high-level overview of the game's structure. I want to examine what the new stars, characters, and stages do to the overall flow of the game, which is the main thing impacted in DS. However, if there are any particular level changes that I think are interesting, I'll mention them. With all that yapping out of the way, let's get started. DS introduces 30 new stars, bringing the total up to 150. You would assume that this would necessitate an increase in the star door counts, and you'd be half right. The first and last star doors have higher numbers. The 30 and 50 star doors remain the same. Examining the foyer star door, the amount required has been increased from 8 to 12. However, this isn't just to account for the new stars. Gaining 8 now allows you to go rescue Mario from a brand new level, which is a really clever setup. Starting the game as Yoshi puts a big twist on a familiar opening. But when you hit that magic number 8, you still get a boss fight. Just a completely different boss than usual. Then after that, you get to spend 4 levels with the Wahoo Man before moving on to Bowser. This is a great pace, because you've likely already grabbed a Mario hat as Yoshi, so you don't need a ton of practice as Mario, but you still get to explore the previous levels as him. Additionally, it just plays well at the first floor. The foyer is the only part of the castle where you have these mini star doors with individual levels locked behind each one. Adding another level to that structure feels satisfying. Moving on from the foyer, the amount of stars needed to access Big Boo's Haunt has been increased.
Who calls the foyer a foyer?
Was 12. So
Foyer.
Overlapping with the Bowser fight, and ensures you probably won't unlock Luigi before fighting Bowser. Speaking of Luigi, when you unlock Big Boo's Haunt, you're able to go get him. All of these changes keep the pace of the beginning really snappy, with constant level and character unlocks. I also really like how they hid Luigi's portrait inside another level. Later the game will play out mostly the same until you reach Wario at the last star door. You get Wario at a good point. By the time you reach him, it'll likely have been a while since you got Luigi, and if you still don't have Luigi at this point, it's a good clue to go find him. As a brief aside, I really like how you rescue each character by using the previously unlocked one, except for poor Wario, who doesn't get to go rescue anyone. Anyway, before we talk about the ramifications of the final star door, I had 2 levels I thought were worth mentioning here. Battle for is a completely new level found in the courtyard. It is a nice addition. It introduces 2 of the more annoying enemies earlier on, in a much safer environment. The other level I wanted to mention is Womp's Fortress, which actually received a lot of changes. First off, I really like this new green section surrounding the bottom of the level. It makes traversing in a circle much easier, and reduces the threat of dying from the void, which is fair on the second level. What I don't like about Womp's Fortress, new shape of the cage island. Instead of being a circular cage with an open top, it's shaped like a house at the edge of a larger platform. I suspect they did this to make landing on it with the owl easier, but this makes it impossible to triple jump to. Well, I think so. I did a bunch of tests, and it might still be
Increases
possible,
aggro and TP cost, but
the angle quite.
what? Why would you want
This will
this?
also miss an opportunity to make an improvement. If you know Mario 64, break away the wall is an easy star to grab, but if you're new to
I
the
mean, I
game,
guess
can
it
be
will
pretty
increase
esoteric.
attack further
you
if
can into this corner.
she was
It
main
seems like
class,
this would have
but
been a great opportunity to place the star's location onto the mini-map, to make it go clearer. Comparing to the star doors, the final one has been increased from
This will
70
be
stars
useful.
to 80, which really ends up backloading the game. While doing research for this video, I stumbled upon this Reddit post that pointed out something interesting. In Mario 64, every time you pass a big star door, you don't have to go to any of the old levels again. Once you leave the lobby, you can only play levels in the basement. And once you leave the basement, you can only play levels in the second floor. There'll always be enough stars to progress. Once you reach the very top of the castle, you have to go back to previous levels. Even if you get every star on TikTok Clock and Rainbow Ride, there's not enough to get 70. Now, I actually wouldn't say backtracking old levels is a bad thing, but because there aren't enough stars on the 3rd floor, the choice to backtrack is taken away from you. This little quirk doesn't ruin the game or anything, but if you all felt fatigued near the end of Mario 64, maybe they had a part to play in it. Especially if you play DS. We have to go through an additional 10 levels. Seriously, while streaming this game, I hit 70 stars and my brain went, okay, the stream is going to end soon. But then I had to play through another 10 levels. It ends up being a big rope up, and I would have preferred for the 30 and 50 star doors to also be increased. What about the new type of stars they introduced? Well, I'm glad to say that I think DS did pretty well in this regard. The game has a bunch of new stars in it. 2 main types being silver stars and switch stars. Silver stars are a lot like red coins. We have to collect all of them to get a star. Whereas red coins focus more on finding, silver stars are about getting. They're on your map at all times. The challenge comes from getting the star in whatever situation it's in, like being dragged behind Chain Chomp. You also have to be careful not to get hit, otherwise we'll drop one. Overall, I really like these stars. They fit the game perfectly and take advantage of the open-ended levels. Switch stars introduce a speed challenge.
Counterattacks.
One of Mario 64's strengths is being able to do
Negate
missions out of order,
physical
and these play
encounter.
right into that. There are present in the level, and once pressed, you have to race to the star before it disappears. There's not much more to say. They're just a good addition and add to the open-endedness. Where the new stars, and particularly changes to the old stars, begin to fall apart, it's anything involving new characters. See, some stars can only be grabbed by certain characters. This makes sense on paper, and it's like the caps in the original, but it can be annoying in practice. If you're playing as the wrong character, it means you'll either have to scrounge up that plumber's hat, or run all the way back to the character select room. This is especially annoying if you have to use Yoshi. It doesn't have a hat equivalent. You could play as just Yoshi, since you can pick anyone's hat right at the start, but that just feels unideal. Like, you're telling me I shouldn't play as Super Mario? This new friction doesn't really add a new challenge to the game, and feels a bit more like a time waster. Take the new star on Jolly Roger Bay, for instance. You need Luigi to use his Vanish power. That sounds fine, but then you realize it's basically the exact same mission as through the jet stream, where you use the metal power to get through the rushing water. Technically, into the jet stream can be cheesed with the right angle, so I guess this new mission is an uncheesable version, but it still feels like uninspired filler. Uninspired filler is still better than the elephant in the room. Wario. I'm sorry, my boy, but they've ruined you. Wario is the slowest character in the game. He makes up for it by having the worst jump. He's also the only one who can destroy black bricks, which are all over the game. Sometimes these bricks can be fine. It's a good challenge in shifting sand lane, for instance, but in a lot of cases, it feels like the developers just needed anything for Wario to do. Like the new level in Dire Dire Box, where he breaks the bricks and then goes in a straight line to get the star. Or how you now need Wario to access the most secret stage, even though both stars can only be obtained with other characters' powers, meaning you have to equip their hats anyway. These stars aren't the worst in the world, but Wario is still the least fun to play as, and a lot is locked behind him. It wouldn't be completely fair to rag on him without considering the other side of the coin. Luigi is a powerhouse. He can literally walk on water and do a spin jump so high, it makes up for the fact that he can't wall jump. Luigi is able to skip the titular maze in Hazy Maze Cave. Could make the argument that further messes with the balancing of the game, since Luigi makes so much trivial. But to be honest, I don't really care. At the end of the day, he's really fun to play as. And I think it would have been cool if they made Wario just as broken. Like, maybe Wario could have used his shoulder bash to be the quickest character, throw him the best on flat terrain. Anything would have been better than making him be a glorified key for a couple levels. With all the changes to the pacing, stars, and the new characters, do I think DS improved the game design of the original? Well, after considering everything, I do think the original has a slight edge on DS. Mario 64 is a super streamlined experience. And while DS does add a lot that blends together with the existing levels, a lot of it can feel kind of tacked on. That doesn't make DS a bad game. It's still enjoyable and offers a different take on Mario 64. With a couple more changes, it could easily surpass the original. I will say, if you do want to give DS a try, absolutely install the analog stick mod. It's how I played this time around, and it made ignoring the controls while analyzing this game a lot easier. And someone whose first experience with 64 was the DS version, will always hold a place in my heart.
There's a mod
So,
that lets
what's the
you...
ultimate conclusion of
That
this
sounds
video?
like a fun way to
Well,
replay the
I
game.
guess when you ignore the things people don't like about a game, it can turn out to be completely fine. Which seems kind of obvious in retrospect. I don't know. When I wrote this down on my list of video ideas, I thought I might really discover something profound here, but now we're at the end of the video and it's basically the same place we started in. Thanks to my channel members. Join us next
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture.
my last video on Mario 64 DS, I focused on how the new characters and stars affected the structure and flow of the game. Enough people commented that they wanted a video going over some of the more granular differences that I decided to take another crack at it. You don't have to watch that video to understand this one, but I will be skipping over some of the big picture topics I discussed there. This time around, I'm going to be analyzing each level individually and seeing if the changes and additions end up improving the level design. I'm not going to lose sleep if I end up missing a coin or if Goomba slightly change of position, but I've made it my top priority to mention all star and geometry related changes. There ended up being a lot more than I expected. If you notice anything I missed out on, be sure to comment down below, and maybe subscribe while you're at it. Before we begin, I want to note that the levels are like 85% the same, though when deciding which version is better, it ends up being deliberation between a couple of very small design choices, including if the new content adds TDM. more stars does not inherently equal a better game. Alright, I just wanted to get that out of the way in case this video ends up feeling a bit nitpicky. The scale of these changes means it basically has to be, otherwise the entire video would just be me going, none of this matters. With all that out of the way, let's go. First, there's some consistent game-wide changes. Every stage now has 3 hats for each of the opponents, so you can easily swap characters. Likewise, every level has also gained a pink bomb, that will show you red coin locations on the minimap. The hats are a necessity for the gameplay of this remake, so I'm neutral on that, but I really like the new pink bombs. They're a convenient addition that makes good use of the bottom screen. Next, new giant mushrooms can be found outside of certain bricks. Grabbing one turns you invincible, allows all characters to destroy black bricks, and quickly grab down poles. On paper it sounds useful, but the utility ends up being extremely limited, as they don't appear all that often. On top of not being in every level, whether or not they'll appear can also depend on what star you selected. For instance, in Ball on Battlefield, this brick is a 1-up for the first 3 levels, and a Mega Mushroom on the other star. Overall, it's a puzzling inclusion. Mario 64, there was never a situation where I thought, man, Wish Art is huge right now. It's such a scarce item that its best utility, rigging the black bricks, ends up not really mattering. I can't say it makes the game worse. It is fun to demolish stages like this. It's just not particularly useful. Finally heading into Ball on Battlefield, King Ball has a new projectile-based moveset, which makes the fight more involved than the original. Second, 4 stars are where things start to get weird. Apparently Koopa the Quick isn't on enough to race the Yoshi, so you have to track down a Mario hat first. Similarly, the 4 star is a King of All fight, but with its normal moveset, so you're required to once again get a Mario hat and climb the mountain. Even in the first level, having multiple characters is already slowing the game. It's not horrible or anything, just a tad weird compared to the slick pacing of the original, which might have been the point. Maybe the developers want us to think, man, I wish Mario was here right now. And considering there is the teleport, going up the mountain in extra time isn't exactly difficult. Still, I think letting Yoshi race Koopa the Quick would have flowed better, and then they could have introduced the hats for the refight. Maybe they could have even moved him off the top of the mountain, put him somewhere in the level as a new threat, until you get the Mario hat and you can fight back. Luckily, the changes aren't all bad here. The refight replaces the star on the skyline, which wasn't exactly that interesting in the first place. The new star is a Silver Star Hunt, and it's one of the better ones because it repurposes Chain Chomp as a new moving obstacle, which is a really cool
the
difference.
numbers are actually
Still, I'm not
better
really
for the
covering
medic.
graphical differences in this video. It's worth mentioning here. All the other levels in DS try to capture a similar vibe as the originals, but Ball on Battlefield feels completely different. It's the battlefield part of the level a lot more, but some may find it jarring. Overall, I'd say the original is slightly stronger, since it's more streamlined. Also, they got rid of the 3rd ball after you defeat King Bomb, so that's really this level's biggest sin. Jumping into the 2nd level, Bomb's Fortress has big geometry changes, with an additional layer of green being added at the base of the fortress. I really like this addition. It's the 2nd level of the game, so this reduces the threat of falling into the void. This green space is also where the new star takes place. Switch Star, requiring you to break this brick and then run around the edge of the island. This can be done in any mission, so it fits really well. One of the red coins has also been moved down here. Main negative is the new shape of the floating island. It's now a house-shaped cage on a bigger island instead of a circular cage with an open top. This makes it easier to land on with the arrow, but much harder to triple jump to. That negative is pretty minor overall though, so Bomb's Fortress is better in DS. Moving on to Jolly Roger Bay, it seems like the triggers for making the eel come out of the ship have been made a lot easier to activate. For some reason, I always struggle to get the eel to come out, so I appreciate this. Plunder in the sunken ship is also easier, as you only have to open one chest to load the water, which is kind of a baffling change. Having multiple chests introduces tension, because you have to figure out the correct order while having limited oxygen. If there's only one chest, why even bother? Just have there be no water and make the focus be platforming up to the star. Blast to the stone pillar is no longer in a box, which is actually in line with the Japanese version. New addition is the Switch Star on the back cove, which in practice is the exact same star as Through the Washing Water, as they both require you to use a character's power to collect the star, though I'm negative on this new one. That being said, even though the new star is uninspired and the change of the chest is weird, making the eel easier to activate is enough for me to call this level better. Full Mountain now requires Yoshi to collect the red coins. Some of them are now frozen in ice. This isn't a huge problem because you start with Yoshi. On the other hand, Yoshi is unable to carry the baby penguin, meaning for that story you'll have to come back with someone else, which is a bit annoying. Next change I'm not completely sure about, but I think the race against the big penguin is easier. Again, I can't exactly tell, but it seems like he might rubber band a bit less, which I don't have a problem with. The new Switch Star requires Wario to break open this pool of ice. Even though Wario is one of the biggest annoyances in this game, this star isn't that bad because his hat is right next to the pool after he's unlocked. Once the ice is broken, you can immediately get hit or grab a different hat to do the rest as a better character, so it's an alright start. Overall, this level ends up locking a lot behind different character requirements, so I'd say it's worse. Up next is Battles in the Dark World, and I'll take this time to cover all 3 Bowser stages. They're all the exact same, except for each of them getting a new Switch Star, which are well implemented. They make you turn around and platform in reverse for a bit. They also don't kick you out after grabbing them, making it convenient and easy to grab on your first visit. Good addition. Stopping by Big Boo's haunt, Yoshi can't actually kill the Boo to access this level, so on your first visit, you'll have to be Mario. Secret of the Haunted Books. They blocked off a previous shortcut with glass, making the book puzzle required. One of the red coins has been moved out of the casket room and is now hidden in the ceiling of the lobby. 2 Star is a switch star in the basement, which requires warriors to access. Once the brick is broken and the switch is pressed, you run in a circle to grab the star. Yeah, it's not very inspiring. However, Luigi's portrait is in this level, which saves the whole thing. I'm not going to count anything in the portrait as part of Big Boo's haunt, it's more of its own thing, but the painting simply being here is a cool addition, so I'll give it a DS for this one. I think the Lava Land is my favorite stage. DS basically keeps it the same. They added a Silver Star hunt, which strongly encourages you to use a shell, which is really fun. Although the camera can act kind of weird while you're on it, they also hit a new blue coin switch under a warrior brick, so you want him for 100 coin star, but that's pretty minor. I think the Lava Land is overall an improvement. Shifting Sandland saw a lot of changes. Klepto has been moved to the front of level, so the player doesn't have to run back to get him. The star is still placed in its original location, so the player will have to go there regardless. That change doesn't really matter then, which is exactly how I feel about the red coins inside the pyramid being swapped for silver stars. New star involves using Wario to hit a switch star. Despite my annoyance with him thus far, I actually like this one. His poor jumping skills make it kind of interesting. And once you break the bricks, you'll swap your hand to do the rest to someone else. But if you mess up on the way back, you'll have to redo it all. Or you could just try to do it entirely as Wario, which might include using him to punch the Tox boxes out of the way. I didn't know you could do this. This is the best use of Wario in the entire game. The point is, there's some actual risk versus reward for that star. In a similar vein, Mario can use his new balloon ability to float up the inside of the pyramid, and Luigi can do a backflip to easily reach Irock's chamber. If you manage to reach Irock as Wario though, he can actually kill it in fewer hits. Shifting Sandland ends up giving a lot of benefits to the different characters, making it actually feel important to choose between them. Overall, a big improvement. Hazy Maze Cave has generally taken a turn for the worse. You need Wario for so many stars now. The first one needs him to break open this boulder. Dory will have his hat though, and she looks really cute in it, so it's not too big a problem. After that, you're gonna need Wario again to access the abandoned mine, and to play watch for rolling rocks. Which is annoying in particular. Changing the start from a couple wall kicks to breaking the boulders is a good idea, but you arbitrarily need Wario to break a black brick first. Likewise, new switch stars also hidden underneath these bricks. In the original video, I complimented the concept of switch stars because they can fit into existing levels well. While I still think that's generally true, it's knowing how many of them are hidden underneath bricks like this. On top of all this, thanks to Luigi, it's possible to skip every star involving the poison maze, if you decide to go in anyway. It's a much more annoying area since the poison now gives knockback. Overall, I'd say this level's worse. Speaking of worse, Dire Docks is pretty lazy. The new star is stupid easy to grab. You can get a straight line from the switch to the star. All you need is, you guessed it, Wario to break the bricks. They've also removed one of the chests from the bottom of the water, making that star easier. Moving to the other side of the level, because the cap powers were separated between the characters, the gimmick of collect the caps is ruined. Instead of grabbing both the Vanish and Metal at the same time, you just have Luigi boringly swim to the star. Pole jumping has also been streamlined with fewer poles and an additional platform. Submarine now has a bullet bill blaster, but I would be surprised if anyone has ever gotten damaged by it. Dire Docks wasn't one of 64's better stages anyway, but it definitely didn't improve here. Before moving on to the upstairs, let's talk about 2 secret stages. You now need Wario to access the most secret, which is really weird. Both the stars there require different character abilities to play, which means you're going to have to swap paths anyway. The original star is the same.
The line
The new one feels
version of
really
these.
tacked on. It requires you to use Mario's balloon ability to blow up a vertical shaft, hitting a switch, which is a really good concept. Where it gets weird is the
I
strength
can
you have
unlock
to
group
take
therapy,
Just like you're doing something wrong, even though
and Agloophopolis will be really good.
Makes it worse. Behind the waterfall's new star is really boring and requires Mario to float up in a straight line. These are the types of changes I think people really don't like about DS. The star doesn't add anything interesting, it just makes you backtrack through Hazy Maze Cave one more time. I'm gonna say it's worse. Going up the castle stairs, No Man's Land is a really interesting case. Half the stars are changed. perhaps to help accommodate for the size of a DS screen. In the deep freeze, which required you to navigate this cramped ice sculpture to a change to simply melting ice at Yoshi. The igloo has also been completely redone, changing from another cramped space to a much more open area. Doing this makes the igloo star incredibly easy, since Luigi can easily grab Vanish without any challenge. The new star for this course is actually the red coins inside the igloo, which is also very easy to do. The previous red coin hunt has been converted to a silver star mission, which I don't mind. In the original level, a lot of the red coins were next to each other anyway, so this star is basically the same mission, just slightly consolidated. Again, I think the changes to the ice sculpture and the igloo were made so the camera would play nicer on a DS screen, but it makes those stars less interesting. Snowman's Lane is a bit worse on DS, which is unfortunate, as it's probably my favorite upstairs stage. Wet Dry World is basically the same, besides going to a silver star mission. Mars Blue Power can also be of some assistance here while climbing up the level, so I guess it's better, but if any level could have really been overhauled, it was probably this one. Really, it feels like an Unreal Engine test room I put together for fun. I guess people say it has a negative aura for a reason. Tall Mountain is slightly mixed. The enclave with the slide star has been blocked from a fence, meaning you'll either have to use the slide as intended, or use Luigi's Vanish. New star involves using the wing cap to fly through 5 floating rings, which is a nice mix-up after most of the new stars are simply silver or switch stars.
It's kind of funny that Tails Rock can actually kind of
breathtaking use of a bridge with Mario Wario. Now instead
be a
of using
buccaneer
grab
just
the star
fine.
before time runs out, just grab the hat at the top and walk to the star. Easy peasy. What once was a challenge is now a slow walk with Wario. I think it ends up slightly worse. Next is Tiny New Challenge. 5 Itty Bitty Secrets has been replaced with a new mission where you can catch Klepto again. This is an alright start, but I'm just not sure why they changed it in the first place. At first I thought the holes were too small for a DS screen, but that's not the case at all. I have to assume they simply thought the star was too esoteric to be left in, which I kind of agree with. As for the new star, the Swiss star that takes place inside the cave, which I like simply because it uses the inside section more. I consider this level a tiny huge improvement. Going
Yeah,
through the
fuck
final
it.
star door, we arrive at Tick-Tock Clock, which has been modified a surprising amount. Roll into the case and replace with a version where you need Luigi to get inside and nab the star. This makes it so you have to climb up higher for the first star, and introduces the possibility of comically falling to death. Pendulum has also been made harder, by turning it into a switch star, which makes it a precarious race.
また来たな
Finally, time jumps on moving bars has also been changed. Now there's a black brick blocking the star. I don't mind this one because the wire hat is nearby, and you can also use Luigi's Vanish to get into the cage. The brand new star is a simple silver star hunt, which is actually unique.
どこにしま
All the
った
stars
か
are set free,
な
so they'll be infinitely tumbling down before they respawn at the top. Even though this means that you can just wait at the bottom for them all to fall, I like the gimmick. Overall, they've made the stage more challenging, but not in an annoying way. Also, I just want to point out the map of this level is useless. This tells me nothing. On top of being the hardest stage, Ring of Water is also the longest one. This version keeps everything the same, besides for the addition of a new switch star. It's located in the manor. This means you'll have to take an additional trip up the carpet. For a star that is incredibly similar to the one already there. Small upside that you can use for Blue Mario to skip a small portion, but I don't think that makes up for it. As is, the level is worse. Switch Star is more creative, or if Blue Mario is used all throughout the level, I would have been willing to call it an improvement. And to cap off levels, is the final secret stage. Over the Rainbow's main star remains the same. They crammed in a Wario brick for the new star, which is admittedly easy to grab. Level still sends you to the courtyard if you fall. It's a small L. That wraps it up for the stages, but we're not done yet. Castle Ground itself actually has quite a few differences. Firstly, Boos in the courtyard now hold a red star, which is pretty clever. If you're used to Mario 64, you're probably going to ignore these guys, and might not even realize they have red coins until you stop and think and go, hey, it's a good addition. On the second floor, Luigi can go through this door in the mirror and nab a star. I also really like this one. Feels like another clever aha moment, but trying to use this door. The imagery of Luigi and the board is funny. In the original, Mitch the Rabbit gives out 2 stars at various points, but both of these have been removed. We'll say Luigi and the board replaces one of those, and the other is a paint view of the new rabbits. Before we talk about that star and specifics, let's talk about these guys. Rabbits now roam the castle, being color-coded for which character can catch them. Upon being caught, they give you a key which unlocks a brand new minigame. In the first video, I mentioned how this game was a showpiece for the DS to prove that it could do big 3D games. Well, it also needed to prove some functionality for the touchscreen, which the minigames do excellently. It honestly feels like a big mistake that I neglected to mention them, since they do add to the overall flow of the game. Taking a quick break from Star Wars to try out new minigames is fun and provides some nice variety. To be fair to myself, I did somehow manage to miss every rabbit during my last playthrough. I'm not going to hold this against the game because I definitely just ran past a lot of them, although it does show they're not essential. But I will absolutely hold it against the game. It's a weird grind that developers somehow managed to shove into these rabbits. See, once you collect 50 stars, following rabbit might randomly replace the rabbit you've already caught. If you catch 8 of them, you get a key that lets you go into the mysterious white door, which has a star. This isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's just so random. My big sticking point is that you have to get a third of the stars in the game before you can even start collecting them. Then, you have to do basically the same thing 8 times in a row. It's easy enough to grind by repeatedly entering and exiting the front of the castle as Yoshi, but just such a nothing star, and an anticlimactic reward for the white door. Overall, I like the changes to the castle itself, including the rabbits, even if the glowing ones are meh. Wrapping up, some final notes. There's now a hedge maze outside the castle where you have to grab a rabbit to get inside. I like this as a decoration, good change. The moat has an additional slope to make navigation easier. Good change. Yoshi is no longer on top of the castle, and Luigi can instead catch a rabbit here to unlock the last minigame. Technically a worse change, but also I don't know who they could have replaced him with. And that's about it! This game is an interesting case where overall more of the levels might be better than the original, but the game suffers from a death of 1,000 cuts, since so many of the levels now require backtracking as Wario or any other character. I hope one day Nintendo will eventually revisit this specific version of the game and keep building onto it. There's a lot of good to work with, they just need to correct a couple things. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for my next video, where I'll discuss the differences between the American and Japanese versions of Mario Bros. 2. I don't want to alarm anyone, but I think we're being hoodwinked.
よしおお
Ah, it appears to be a fixed rate. Interesting.
Yes.帰っちゃうの？
いらっしゃい、どうぞ。誰を呼びますか？気をつけるんだよ。
おや、君たちこれにするんだね。あ、また来たね。それじゃ頼んだよ。
Ah.
これにするんだね。それじゃ頼んだよ。
$55 should be a good level. In fact, it should be over-leveled.
Since the very beginning of Five Nights at Freddy's, we have had a familiar cast of recurring characters. First it was Freddy Fazbear, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy the Pirate. And in the following games, these characters received new, updated variations in the form of the toys, the Fun Times, the Glam Rocks, sometimes losing characters along the way and sometimes gaining them back. One character who has consistently returned again and again is Bonnie, Freddy's right-hand man who has been there from the beginning. From Springlock suit days to neon bowling alleys, there was always some form of Bonnie floating around. And I've covered many of them. Except for one. Toy Bonnie. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the main cast of animatronics were upgraded into new, plasticky, softer forms with built-in criminal recognition software to help cut down on the amount of disappearances around the pizzeria. This line was known as the toy animatronics, likely due to their doll-like appearances. Like I said, they sported softer designs, lighter colors, rosy cheeks, and stubby hands with blocky feet. Likely because of the reputation surrounding Freddy's, it was an executive decision to make these guys more family-friendly. And nobody was made more family-friendly than Toy Bonnie himself, with the big glassy eyes and a buck-toothed smile. Classic Bonnie, his predecessor, was the one to sort of drift into the background, but Toy Bonnie's vibrant design and, as we will eventually see, loud personality made it impossible to overlook him.
Well, I technically don't.
Or so you would think. But one good visual example of how distinct he was the similarity between Freddy and Bonnie, and comparing that to the distinctness of Toy Freddy and Toy Bonnie's designs, not even sharing the same general build. Now, there was some dispute about Toy Bonnie's gender when FNAF 2 came out. Due to his big ol' eyes and noticeable eyelashes, it was believed that he was possibly a girl. But it's pretty much been confirmed since then that Toy Bonnie, like Bonnie before him, is male. Also, like Bonnie before him, Toy Bonnie plays a blazing red guitar, likely frisked off the Bonnie before him and rebuilt to fit the new design. And these aren't the only things taken. While it was never expressly stated, in fact, part of it wouldn't entirely make sense. It is kind of alluded to that Withered Bonnie's face was gutted for parts for Toy Bonnie. But again, considering that the toy animatronics are newly built, this doesn't seem likely. But this could explain why Toy Bonnie is haunted. In FNAF 2, it's kept vague if the animatronics are actually haunted or just malfunctioning, like stated in the trailer. The later games pretty much suggest that they too are haunted by someone, Toy Bonnie included, though who is haunting Toy Bonnie is unknown. Like most of the animatronics we've seen over the years, Toy Bonnie was aggressive towards the workers at the pizzeria and would hunt at night amongst them, with Toy Bonnie being one of the most aggressive because right out of the gate he is running for that office. Though in later nights, other animatronics may be creep through the party rooms before entering into a vent and crawling down it into the office. You must put on a mask and watch as Toy Bonnie sidles his way in before leaving. Rinse and repeat with him getting more tricky as the nights go on. I've said before that I personally believe Toy Bonnie is one of the lesser threats in FNAF 2, and have had some folks say that is not entirely the case, and so I suppose game style is what really matters when judging Toy Bonnie. Or maybe I'm just wrong. Well, that's how he plays. Personality-wise, though, there wasn't one at this point. Toy Bonnie didn't really have any noticeable moments of characterization, and in a bizarre twist, didn't even have any dominant fandom characterization. What do I mean by that? Well, you know how a lot of folks portray certain FNAF characters in the same vein? Like how so many people imagine Chica with a country accent and being a sweet bird who likes to eat, nom nom nom, back when all they had to go off of was a bib and a cupcake. Now, that didn't turn out 100% correct, but the point is that the fandom sort of came together, picked up little clues, and made their own characterization. Many FNAF animatronics have had this fan-created characterization. Some of them were adopted into canon, some weren't. But it's mostly a tribute to how popular the character was, or is, with how the fans came together, observing other interpretations and adding their own spin to it. I can't recall Toy Bonnie having any set fanon presence. Like, sure, you'd find fan fictions, but up until recently, Toy Bonnie's characterization was largely based off of what gender he was being portrayed. Sometimes it would be about his relationship with Withered Bonnie. Did he want to be a replacement? Did he feel bad about it? Toy Bonnie was just not that popular of a character. He was well known for the most part, but there wasn't that frothing at the mouth energy that you see with some other characters, especially recently, and there was a reason for that. Now, in a meta sense, Toy Bonnie had one big problem from the moment of creation. It was even noticeable in his reveal trailer, and that problem was he was instantly overshadowed by the other Bonnie in the pizzeria, Withered Bonnie. The irony here being that Bonnie kinda just always stayed in the background, and the second he gets busted, he becomes a fan favorite, overshadowing another Bonnie completely. But you can see why. Withered Bonnie's gutted face and massive size made him intimidating, but it also, interestingly enough, made him sympathetic. And because Toy Bonnie didn't have much defining characterization, like as few quirks were shared with other characters, Withered Bonnie was the superior Bonnie just off the design aspect. And what helped was the sort of sympathetic connotations that were taken from his predicament. As spooky as a faceless Bonnie is, there's also something tragic about it. Like an old stuffed animal all used up and replaced by a prettier, shinier toy. It draws you in. And if you subscribe to this draw, you might be less inclined to feel an equal attachment to Toy Bonnie. Not saying that you would hate the toy on the Withered's behalf, but I am saying that he's not peddling the same sob story. But there was something very sympathetic about Toy Bonnie, and that was his shelf life. The toy animatronics did not last long at all. Being introduced and having the pizzeria shut down in the same year, they were little more than a blip in Freddy's animatronic line.
I'm so glad I'm so
Toy
fucking
Bonnie's
stupid
face was
sometimes.
swamped by disclosure as he and the rest
Listening
of
to the
the toys
extended version of this
puppet
song is fucking
were
awesome.
deconstructed, likely due to the narrative about them malfunctioning. Limbs and empty shells are piled into a cardboard box that is seen in FNAF 3's office. It is unclear where they eventually hid, but likely they were just sitting in a warehouse somewhere and then bought out by the owners of the Fazbear Fright attraction. His uplifted head and the rest of his disassembled limbs are assumedly burned in the fire at the end of the game. Also, in FNAF 3, most of the toy animatronics hit cameos.
Also, yeah, Alma's still fucking overpowered as all fucking hell.
Toy
Like, what
Bonnie
the
does
hell?
get a cameo in FNAF 4 though, but it's very small. As the toy animatronics appear as literal toys that the crying child sees a T-posing girl playing with. And you might be wondering how the toy animatronics were out for only half a year in 87 and yet had toys in 83, and the answer is, I haven't the foggiest idea. Anywho,
Maybe
on
they
Toy
were
Bonnie's
toys
next real
and then
non-cameo
later turned into
and the spin-off game
mascots.
FNAF World.
Come
Toy
on.
Bonnie is one of the characters that you unlock by default, and is in the second team you start with. He has two attacks, Bash Jam, which damages all enemies, and Munchies, which lays
Oh my
down living
God.
bear traps that will bite over the course
Someone's
of the
talking about FNAF
His third
World.
attack, Prize Ball, causes him to use random low-rank attacks. Imagine Metronome from Pokemon, except it can't pull from the really powerful moves. Not much more to say on that, except his tagline is something new, which is referencing his FNAF 2 teaser. Toy Bonnie's not a bad character, but he's one of those early game characters who gets outclassed pretty quickly. Still totally usable, but you'll have to have a beefy team around him to carry his cottontail. Moving on, Toy Bonnie did not return in sister location, but it should be noted that Bon Bon, Funtime Freddy's hand puppet, and the closest thing we get to a Funtime Bonnie, does somewhat resemble Toy Bonnie, to a degree. Toy Bonnie's next real role was in Ultimate Custom Night. This is a relatively small role, but many animatronics were given voices in this game, and thus added personalities to them. Some characters we thought we knew well even had additional lines, which opened up a whole new world of possibilities. In some cruel twist of fate, every toy animatronic got a voice and an enhanced personality, except Balloon Boy, who already had the giggles and the reputation as a gremlin, and Toy Bonnie. No kidding. Toy Freddy became a salty gamer, Toy Chica a seductive sadist, Mangle a 2-in-1 bundle of insecurity, and Toy Bonnie sidles into the office and is warded off with a mask, just like in FNAF 2. Dead silent. That's just plain cruel. What Toy Bonnie did get, at least, was a cameo in Toy Chica's high school years as one of the bachelors who she tries to woo. She's enraptured by his long ears and decides to catch his attention by lying that her house is on fire, having him go to her house after school, and then lie that she put out the flames by throwing herself onto them. I mean, fair. If someone put out flames with their body, you might not feel inclined to tick them off by turning them down. That's one heck of a plan to get to that point. So a rather meager showing. A rather confusing situation where a singular character kinda got the short end of the stick, but don't worry, Toy Bonnie eventually got his voice. Or, well, do worry a little bit. Toy Bonnie returned again in Help Wanted, naturally, as Help Wanted had a remake of FNAF 2 in it. Which means that we get to see Toy Bonnie walking around in the hallway, come into the office by vent, and then stand there, menacingly. No kidding though, this dead-eyed doll standing in the dark is pretty creepy. This is like the most uncomfortable Toy Bonnie gets most of the time. Though, compared to Toy Freddy's dumpy walk cycle and the puppets unfurling himself from his box, Toy Bonnie again sort of got the short end of the stick. Not a bad showing at all, but he's just kinda there. But finally, after all this time, Toy Bonnie got a significant showing in none other than Cafe R's special delivery. Toy Bonnie was the second animatronic added to the roster after Toy Chica. And the biggest thing here is that he gets a reveal on his personality and brand new voice. And that voice is...
Ladies and gentlemen, the stage is now superstar.
Okay. So the inspiration for this voice is one of two things. One, Alvin and the Chipmunks. Alvin and the Chipmunks has been around since the 50s, but they were pretty popular in the 80s, or at least had a cartoon that ran from 1983 to 1990, and a surge of popularity around the same time. That could be it. But also, right before Toy Bonnie's debuted, a reality TV show known as The Masked Singer got insanely popular. In the show, celebrities hide behind masks and sing, and judges guess their voices. So when they're talking, their voices are pitched like this. But the reason I think this is the inspiration is because the Masked Singers will have these hint videos, and during them they tend to speak a lot like Toy Bonnie does in his lines. The sort of halting sentences and the emphasis on stars and popularity. It would be like this. This is a fake example.
I began my quest to stardom at a little pizzeria down the way. Under the eyes of Big Ben and the 4 big men, I hopped from sea to shining sea to get to my stage of stardom. There's nothing that'll make me burn out.
And yeah, that sounds a lot like Toy Bonnie. So I think maybe that led to this decision. I will be blunt. I kind of don't like Toy Bonnie's voice. That is, it doesn't sound real. Like, this isn't the voice I would expect to come out of an 80s animatronic at a pizza joint unless it was directly inspired by the Chipmunks. Anything else would have been better. Cool surfer dude, kid voice, even Bart Simpson-esque voice would have been better. But the voice is not the main issue. The issue is the personality. Toy Bonnie believes himself to be a star, and he shows as much by never shutting up about it.
Clear stage for the star shows here. And yours, Happy, is busily up. Just shut it.
He also makes some relatively generic comments, such as,
His game is
"Oh, you're not even a cat. You couldn't say anything else."
It's not my fault, so it's what they expect you.
So Toy Bonnie comes off as an overconfident fella who, despite his small role in the grand scheme of things, sees himself as a big shot. Now that could be an interesting take. Think about it. Toy Bonnie thinks so highly of himself and is in such denial that he puts himself on a pedestal. Despite that, he still throws out generic quotes, lacking a true identity of his own. He labels himself as a star because what else is there? Toy Bonnie is as hollow as his casing, and instead of admitting it, he builds himself up, so he's never let down. In that way, it's kind of tragic. Toy Bonnie has been sidelined for so long, and he finally gets his moment, and then he blows it. He lets it go to his head, and instead of using it to reshape himself, he inadvertently casts his own shadow and leaves no mark. Except that's not quite true. Despite the fact that I just made this case about delusion and denial, I'm really reaching. Toy Bonnie, between the voice and personality, comes off as very flat. He comes off less as a character and more as a filler archetype because Toy Bonnie didn't have one. That his constant comments about stardom is not because he is obsessed with being in the limelight, but because nobody knew what to do with him, so they just had him be the one who wanted to be a star. So it makes sense, only when backed with a narrative I strung together by framing Toy Bonnie as this constantly overlooked bandmate, and elsewise feels pretty touch and go. Now, I'm not saying Toy Bonnie is a bad character. No siree, he's perfectly fine and I can see why folks like him. But after so long of standing in the background, I honestly kinda wish we would have gotten something a little more distinct, you know? But that's just his personality. What about his playstyle? Frustrating. He moves around in the static and occasionally fake charges you. When he charges you for real, you shock him. It's over. If and when he haywires, you have to use the maps, a mechanic that was added alongside Toy Chica and also used for him, to drive him off. But he also has Springtrap's red light, white light eye mechanics. If his eyes are white, you look at them with the mask on until they turn red, then you look away. If they're red, just look away. This sounds simple, but like with Springtrap, sometimes the mix of static, flickering, and speed can make it a little difficult to see and react fast enough. Though I think Toy Bonnie appears at a higher level than Springtrap, I think Springtrap's harder. Though I've only encountered Springtrap twice and Toy Bonnie once, so I might be wrong. Toy Bonnie has quite a few skins like his other rabbit cousins. System-era Toy Bonnie, a reddish-orange glowing neon Bonnie, Sunken Toy Bonnie, a corroded sea bunny with pearlesque eyes, and Boulder Bonnie, an eyeless bunny statue. I would rate all of these as pretty good skins. Even the ugliest, Sunken Toy Bonnie, has charm with those big trippy eyes. After FNAF AR, there were 2 more recent cameos. Posters of Toy Bonnie can be found in Security Breach, and apparently there's a Toy Bonnie balloon figure or arrangement in Help Wanted 2, but I haven't seen it. It's likely in plain sight, I'm just missing it. Either way, that's the full story of Toy Bonnie's history in the games. And alas, Toy Bonnie has no book appearances that I am aware of, but pretty certain that he has none whatsoever. If he has any offhanded references to him, for example, Fritz went to Stan's Pizza Panhandle and saw a blue Bonnie with pink cheeks and green eyes staring at him like a fish in a bowl, his eyes sucking out his soul and making him remember his traumatic childhood when his mother used to pick him up from school late, but he didn't want to think about that because his girlfriend was coming by, and he wanted to impress her because for the last few weeks they had been having issues with their relationship, and if there was any of that, I'm not aware of it. Which actually isn't too surprising considering that the other toys, save Balloon Boy, barely, and the puppet, also kind of barely, have also been mostly overlooked in the books, and even merch department. Like, take this for example. Toy Bonnie has an action figure, but it's of system-era Toy Bonnie, not even the normal Toy Bonnie. The toys were totally skipped over. And look at this plush. It looks cute enough, but the eyes. So, thus marks the end of Toy Bonnie's importance. But before we move on to my final thoughts, I should mention Shadow Bonnie, or Request the Fastfix, a character who greatly resembles Toy Bonnie but has no known connection to him. Starting as an Easter egg in FNAF 2, Shadow Bonnie is a ghostly rabbit that has appeared in minigames, cameos, and even features as the secret antagonist in Federal Delivery. He is virtually just a blackened out Toy Bonnie with white eyes and white teeth. However, despite the similarities in the looks department, Request the Fastfix is never directly stated to be Toy Bonnie, or related to him at all. He doesn't have his voice. In games where he has animations, he has one different from Toy Bonnie's, and he's even cameoed in places where Toy Bonnie hasn't. The only connection is how he looks like him, and why that is has never till this day been explained. Likely it had to do with the fact that he was a blink and you'll miss it Easter egg that was later elevated to a higher position once he got popular. And yes, before you ask, even Shadow Bonnie was more popular than Toy Bonnie. Toy Bonnie is literally stuck in Shadow Bonnie's shadow. What a cruel world we live in. But that is the story of Toy Bonnie, and it is quieter and much less eventful than any of the other toys, tragically enough. But was that a problem? Weirdly enough, not really. Unlike some characters who have been overshadowed and left behind, Toy Bonnie has always sort of been there, but not in focus. Lost in the crowd or off in the margins. Fans recognize him readily and remember him, so he's left an impact despite his smaller hands. So he has left an impact despite his smaller role. The thing about Toy Bonnie is that while he never had a huge presence in the games or in the fandom, he wasn't ever really forgotten. He was always there, he just was sort of off to the side. So I wouldn't say Toy Bonnie was entirely overlooked, but more that he was just sort of underutilized in the grand scheme of things. And likely it's more noticeable because of situations like Ultimate Custom Night, because he's in a group of characters who were all really popular, and it makes him look tiny in comparison. Did he deserve better? In Ultimate Custom Night, yes. Everywhere else, he was okay. Really, the one thing going for Toy Bonnie and the best chance he's got is his chance of getting a role in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the movie The Squeakquel. And if that happens, that'll be huge. For him at least. So we're probably going to see him again soon. And who knows, maybe he'll finally get that real moment to shine. When he will finally be a superstar. For now, he's sharing that stage. But at least he's still on it. Thank you for watching.
Why can't I take a stance? There you go. That was hard.
おお、お主たちか。よ、何にするのじゃ。なんじゃ。銭を貯めたらまた来るのだぞ。あ、また来たな。朝までお休みだね。どうするの？
That'll do for now.